Hello and welcome. The goal of this podcast is to get listeners connected with others in the sports industry because they say it's all about who you know, and now you know us. All right, hello and welcome to another episode of the Constant Sports Podcast. We have a special guest today, a guest really unlike any guest we've ever had on the show. So we're excited to talk about the world of trampolines, the business side of it, and what's going on there. So thanks for joining us today, Greg.
Thanks a lot, Connor. It's great to be here.
We're looking forward to it, and for the listeners and viewers, you're going to get an upfront seat to kind of the world of trampolines, a traditional sport where that didn't really exist. And Greg here co-founded it. It was in 2018, really the launch of something that didn't exist. No federation, no ties, no, just a trampoline, a camera, a global community, and really that's where Freestyle Trampoline was born, you could say. So we're excited to chat about that. And Greg, why don't you just chat a little bit about to kind of start us off here, but the aha moment, the light bulb moment, as people like to say, kind of in business and life, that when you kind of helped founded this Freestyle Trampoline Association.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here, and thanks a lot. And so the aha moment's actually quite funny because it's a little bit serendipitous in the way it sort of happened, all kind of fell together. But to give it a little context, I was on the national senior team for Olympic trampoline. That's where I come from, and I did that for 20 years. So that I went through the whole track and everything, and I saw exactly how they operate, the NPOs, nonprofit organizations that all kind of funnel under the IOC, how the IOC works, what the politics is there, some of the pros and cons of that. So I got to see that firsthand, went through the whole system. I basically said, look, this sucks. Why are we doing this? This makes no sense at all. No one's having fun. Coaches are abusing athletes, the whole Larry Nassar scandal and all that sort of stuff. And no one's having fun. No one's getting paid. No one's looking cool. Like, I was the top 20 in the world, and I was embarrassed to go tell people that I did. I would hide the fact that I was essentially on the Olympic team because I was so embarrassed by being good at that sport. That's where I come from, right? So I ended up getting a call from Nitro Circus because they saw my YouTube videos. I would train and I would make videos all the time, and that it's just a fun thing to do, and it was just a cool way to sort of think about things a little bit differently. They saw those videos and said, hey, Greg, Travis said, hey, Greg, this is so cool. We're doing action figures, the movie. Come down to my house in Baltimore. We're going to do some videos and everything. Our Willie will be there. Everyone will be there. This is sick. Can you train some of us? Because I have a kinesiology background. So that's actually part of the reason we got connected with those guys. But then they did a tour, and they said, hey, Greg, come on the tour with us. We love this. We're going to build a giant super trampoline. And my old coach actually made it. But the cool part about it is that we ended up shipping the trampoline down to Australia for their 10-year anniversary, if I get that correct. That was in 2015. And I got to basically be witness to exactly how Travis and his whole team, the CEO of 301 and all these kind of guys, how they build all that. And it's mind-blowing, right? Normally you go to a music concert or something, you just see the lights and it looks cool, but you don't see how it works behind the scenes. You don't see all the cables being strung up by little ties and stuff like that, barely hanging by a thread, but hey, that's good enough. You don't see the people that just don't show up on time and somehow they have to get some other vendor in place just in the nick of time, and how DHL equipment won't show up when you think it should, even though you planned it for 3 months, right? You get to see all that, right? So I was like, oh, so this is how this works, right? And we ended up doing the show, and just the way Bruce is the MC, and he's like, come on, Brisbane, blah, 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 let's go. I'm like, oh man, it's so cool. And I had the best seat in the house because we had the trampoline on the side of the stadium. They just sort of pulled it out when I did my sort of set. It was like a 15-minute set. Our Willie and Ethan would double bounce me, and I did a quint at the end. It was very, very cool. And just the way the audience just got so into it, the lights, camera, action. I was like, oh, all right, Team Canada, this is what the professionals do. How come you're not doing this? This is how you become successful, not whatever the heck you guys are doing, and that was really the aha moment. And it gets even more serendipitous, like I was saying, because at the exact same weekend, I don't know how lucky it was, but it was in the exact same arena at the Olympic Center in Sydney when we did the specific show. But across the arena, they had multiple stadiums, obviously. They went to a second one, and the Australian Gymnastics Federation was doing their national competition exactly at the same time. So I go literally from a screaming stadium of 20,000 people, lights, camera, action, girls with fire and all this sort of stuff. It was sick. And then I walk over, and the night and day difference between the gymnastics and then let's call it the successful people, and the gymnastics people are like, shh, she's going for the vault, everyone. Shh. I'm like, oh my God. And that right there was, oh, I get it.
That was it.
Black and white, night and day. That was the aha moment. From there, everything was built from that sort of vision.
So from that moment, yeah, then you guys hit the ground running, or I guess hit the tramp running, as or jumping, I guess would be a better word there. But kind of going off the kind of the business model. So what does it, the association look like with your events? And you mentioned a little bit the behind the scenes stuff that you saw firsthand with Nitro Circus, but kind of as far as the business side go, what goes into that? I know it's a broad question, but when you go into these certain cities and events and hosting these competitions and things.
Well, okay, very long story, extremely short. We basically started with one event in 2017. We invited a bunch of kids online through social media. We found these kids called G-Trampers, Garden Trampoline Kids. They were kids at this time, and they were just bouncing around their backyard, hucking and chucking crazy stuff. Half of them were smashing their heads off fences. The other half were going viral because they somehow survived, kind of thing. And we said, okay, but we can start. These are our Nitro Circus athletes. Okay. So, because we couldn't go to the traditional side. They're like, Greg's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. We're perfect the way we are, blah, 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 blah. This whole thing. I'm like, yeah, whatever, guys. I'm going to beat you at your own game. Let's go. And so we ended up finding these kids that just basically thought the same way I did. Like, I'm not going to master's class because the coach is going to yell at me. He's going to hit me. He's going to tell me I can't do this, can't do that, blah, 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 blah. Too much restrictions. I want to be free and control my destiny. That was literally the kids that we were tapping into. They wanted to control their destiny. That's the big theme here. So we end up picking them online, and we ended up doing this event in 2017. We ended up getting something like 2,000 submissions from like 30 different countries. We're like, whoa,
We're
there's
gonna
a
have something
ton of
here.
these. Yeah, right. That's a lot from just say, hey, we're gonna do an event, guys. Submit your 1-minute video. Let's
Yeah.
see what happens. Oh, come on. That was literally how it started. And then all of a sudden we had all these submissions from everywhere. So all of a sudden we're like, okay, we brought them there. One of the moms worked for the New York Times. We didn't know that, right? So she ended up working there, and all the kids are coming, oh my God, you're flips by Tim. You're flips by Edward. You're Edward Johnny flips. All these guys, that's how they do their Instagram, right? And they're just like, oh my God, I finally meet you for the first time. Like, they were talking online. They're an online community, like a Discord or, Instagram, obviously. So the mom wrote an article about it called The Sport Born on Instagram, because it kind of was, it really, really was. And from there, we ended up bringing these kids to Escondido, California. They did an amazing event, no injuries or anything, no coaches, no structure in that way. We had our judging panel and everything, but it was grassroots as you can literally become. Think backyard wrestling. Like, it was that organic. And we brought them together for the first time, and from there exploded, because New York Times picked it up, LA Times, Ellen DeGeneres, Steve Harvey, everyone started picking this thing up. And all of a sudden we're getting calls, hey, come to Denmark, come to Sweden, come to Austria, blah, blah, blah. We're like, oh, what do we do? Quick, let's build the FTA. Is kind of a little premature, we'll say, but we said, no, we're doing it. We Freestyle Trampoline Association. Let's go. Backpacks in hand, we started traveling the world from 2017 to 2020 when COVID hit. We ended up doing something like 300 events all over the world, 30 different countries. We were hitting 2 to 3 countries a week on average for 3 years. That was the craziest marketing campaign you probably have ever
Yeah.
seen. It was nuts. Canoes, boats, trains, whatever it was that we had to do to get there. But it worked. We shook hands with the babies and the parents and the brands and everybody. And we were like, let's go, guys. Let's go. Let's get this going. We had the spark from Nitro Circus and the vision. We now had our athletes. Now we are building the market itself. And when it first started, the market was zilch. It was no market. There was no high performance backyard trampoline. There, you go to Walmart and you get something that breaks after 2 minutes. The brands now started literally investing millions and millions of dollars into now building these high performance trampolines just for these athletes, right? So at first they were kids, like I said. All of a sudden they're being treated like athletes. They were training like athletes. They were traveling around getting sponsorships and all this. It was really forming in real time within these 3 years. It was fast. It was go, go, go. It just shows how much demand there is for trampoline to be a cool sport, not like, the sport that it is over there, which I won't attach any adjectives to it. But we basically made it very, very cool, like an action sport. And that was the whole thing. We're going to make this an action sport. So when COVID hit, we did like 350 events in 3 years.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it was
crazy.
nuts. Right. So, but that built the market. Lots of articles coming out, lots of stuff going on. We're talking to Red Bull, we're talking to this brand, talking to that brand. Things are great. And then COVID,
Yeah.
like, no, we're just getting going, but it doesn't matter, because it actually was a blessing in disguise, because it said, okay, well, you guys don't want to live on the road like this anyway. It's unpractical. You can't scale this way. So let's become a franchise. So to kind of get back to your original question, what's the structure? We're a franchise. So what we ended up doing was say, okay, during the first few years, we're just proving that there was a market, there
Proof of
was
concept,
demand
yeah.
for it. Exactly. Proof of concept, there definitely was a lot of it, right? We had parents volunteering, we had kids volunteering, they're spending their own money to go everywhere. We weren't paying. This all UGC, user generated content. I've never spent $1 on advertising ever. You know what I mean? Just because we've been able to capture the energy that was already naturally there. We weren't fighting uphill. We were going with the flow, right? So that I think is the big thing for any entrepreneur. Go with the flow of the market and read your market before you start putting up big budgets for this, that, and the other. If the market wants to go that way, it won't make it too hard for you. You just got to channel it. And then when we franchised, said, okay, well, how do we want franchise? Well, not just one franchise, because normal sports, they're NPOs. Under the Olympic stream, they have to be a charity, like a non-for-profit, and they basically have to have a board of directors and all this sort of stuff, which all businesses do at some level. But we were being a franchise saying, no, we own this. When you're an NPO, you basically go in, you have a chairman, you have your vice president, CEO, all that stuff, but you can be voted out overnight, no matter what happens. And what happens in the political world is that people get behind the doors and say, hey, I don't like the way this guy dresses. This guy, I don't know. My daughter went to his birthday party with his wife, and all of a sudden you're fired. Not because of anything to do with the actual, legitimacy of your position in that company. It's the fact that that's just how they work. You can just be fired overnight for fun, and you will lose everything because of that. So why on earth would I do that? It doesn't even make sense, So we just said, we're going to be a franchise. We're going to own all this. So my business partner, 𝗪𝗫 𝗪𝗲, she is a mega legend in the rally racing world. She built up Subaru Rally from literally free Pirelli tires with a bunch of hicks in their backwoods doing nothing, smashing into trees, to then a multi-million-dollar team that was winning North American championships with Subaru and getting their first TSN, ESPN media deals and all that. So she's a bigwig in the business space. So me and her said, okay, I'm going to be the trampoline guy. She's going to be the business guy, we'll say, kind of thing, So we formed that partnership, and it worked really nice. The right hand and the left hand both kind of reaching in different directions, but coming together when we need to, right? So that is it. And then under that, what we end up doing is making a holding company. We called it GRT Global because GRT, Greg Rowe Trampoline, that's my old YouTube, Facebook thing, and I just sort of stuck because who's going to steal that? I don't need to trademark that because no one's going to take it, right? So that became sort of the haven, the holding company. And under that, we started making subsidiaries. All these subsidiaries now start addressing different parts of structure, the different structural components of our community. So what do we have? We have one, live events. Trish is the CEO of the FTA. That is 40 plus live events a year in 30 different countries. We just did one in Israel. We just did one in Munich and in New Zealand in the last week. So she does all of those logistics, this shipping, vendors, sponsorships, allocating sponsorships more than anything, everything, insurance, all that. Then we have media because you have to have televising it, right? So we have media. So Brian Mahoney is a CEO of Flippin' TV, which is our media company. And he has a bunch of people that work under him, and he's an executive. He knows all the OTTs and the fast channels and everything. He's been in it for, 50 some years. So he's a veteran, right? So he's a CEO of that company. I'm on esports. So during COVID, we built the first ever 3-dimensional mobile trampoline simulator, right? So think Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, right? I'm building a mobile version because everyone's on mobile. So, and then we can always upgrade it. And we got some deals on the table from very big publishers. I can't say who they are, but basically that was the start of it. And it was the first ever 3-dimensional esports sort of certified game. We ended up getting part of the Global Esports Federation. So they're a big name in the esports world. So we're making a digital twin. So imagine what you see here, but a digital mobile version. You're playing 𝐒𝐫𝐵. 𝐒𝐵𝐵's this guy right here. You're playing him as an avatar. And you're earning points while you're at home, or maybe you're injured, or maybe you're in Bangalore and there's no trampoline park near you, but you can now still be part of the community. So I'm doing that. Cryptocurrency, iGaming, sports betting, NFT marketplaces, the whole tech ecosystem I'm basically building, and I'm the CEO of that. But then we have our own training center. So we did an FDD during the franchise during COVID. So FDD is a franchise disclosure document. This is the legal paperwork that's like 80 pages of all the numbers and the rights and all that sort of stuff of your franchisees. So we're opening up the first training center in the Netherlands later this year. Still getting the final confirmation. It's always an ongoing thing with real estate. But then we are going to be opening up training centers all over the world and then kids can train in there. But we also have the educational component because we got to train athletes so they're not bozos, right? They got to learn how to not kill themselves. They also have to learn how to run events because so we're not,
Yeah.
paying top dollar for, some huge production team that's going to charge you an arm and a leg. No, let's bring the kids in. Let's get them doing it where they can learn how to do it. They can be part of the building process. It's their community. They're building it, right? So
Mm.
we're doing all of this stuff together from the educational side, which is one subsidiary, our esports, our actual FTA events, the media side, and everything comes together to then be our structure. But they're all franchisable. I can sell an esports level to a trampoline park, which is where these kids live, like a skateboard park, a
Yeah.
surf park, right? I can build one in a mobile game, sell it to them, and they can get revenues on it, but they're building my game for me, right? So there's
Mm.
always this two birds sort of strategy going on in my mind. That's why we franchise. So, but events, they're franchised. You have territories and you run all the events in that territory and they feed to this event, which feeds to the world champs, right? But media, that can also be franchised because you're essentially giving pieces of content to certain people and monetizing it through their channels. That's kind of like a franchise. You're doing the same thing with education because now we're coaching the USA ski and snowboard team, Ski Canada. We have Woodward Action Sports Camp. They're
Yeah.
a huge camp in North America. We do all their staff training and we run a camp there, and that will be expanding as well. So these are, again, kind of franchisable in that way. So we are a franchise, but in every sense of the word, and we've really kind of hanged on to that, and we're not an NPO. We are developing a foundation that is a 501c3, but that is not going to be the core business because you have too many chefs in the kitchen, people unknowledgeable coming in, and they can kick you out
Yeah.
for any reason they want. So why on earth would anyone do that? That's at least my thinking.
Uh-huh. No, yeah, that was an awesome breakdown and kind of learning more behind the scenes of how you and the team have built such a cool brand and business and with the franchise and franchisees and things. And I was curious with all the events you did, you said, 3 to 4 a week, every other week, and you're running all over the world doing these events. But, what are some of your favorite cities, best fans, best areas you've done these events at?
That's an interesting one. I've never been asked that one. I like a lot of places for different reasons.
Mhm.
We have seen a lot of things around the world. We have been in cop chases in Honduras. We have been, gravely injured to the point where I'm not getting up ever again in Norway. We have
Mhm.
been to strip clubs with clients in Poland where I've smashed through a table trying to do a funny little gymnastics thing on the strip club with the clients, and I still have scars from that. That was a hilarious day. To then amazing times where we're doing filming an entire video with Devon Supertramp in Italy, and we are now touring. We're getting expenses paid trip and cash to go and basically tour around all of Italy to Positano and Rome and all these different places where we're just taking in the sights, to then events that are very stressful where you just want to pull your hair out and you're getting sick. Like literally you're getting so stressed that you get sick by the end of the event to the point where like I have to go lie down. Like I literally can't talk on the mic anymore. And to then great events that just went off like so easily, I might as well just be sitting in a beanbag the whole time. You know what I mean? So we go everywhere. My personal favorite cities outside of the business side of it, I would say Amsterdam is great. I love Amsterdam. I love just old architecture. I love the
Mm.
cobblestone like sort of walkways. And when you just go down there and you see people walking through like the canals, we always make a fun, and we always say, oh, they look like penguins because they're so like kind of in like this, and they're just do down in like seas of people just sort of like waddling like penguins down as far as the eye can see, kind of thing. You know what I mean? But then but even home is nice too. Once in a while, you're like,
Right.
okay, get back to where I know where the Wi-Fi works, all that good stuff. So there's always a pros and cons, but I would say if you're not traveling, you're missing the real world experiences that then instigate the spark of innovation for business. I
Mhm.
would say if you don't know, if you want to start a business, but you have no idea what to do, go travel for a few months. You'll come back with many ideas. You won't know which one to pick first.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of goes into my next question a little bit, but kind of as you're building, household names or these athletes, right? Kind of building their profiles and building them up in the, I guess the social media age, you could say. But what kind of goes into that, without kind of traditional federations, right? That kind of prop up athletes like NFL, they can just prop up an athlete and, make them famous overnight almost. But kind of in your world, is it kind of the social media aspect? Is that kind of what gets the trampoline kind of community behind them, or is it some other ways?
It is a social media for sure, just like social media has revolutionized lots of traditional industries,
Mhm.
right? And if you're not on social media, then you're missing out most likely. But I would say the deeper thing, from a biological perspective, because I'm a biology guy, I'm a psychology guy. This is what if for any entrepreneurs to listen to this, go learn about psychology and biology, and go look up Carl Jung and Freud. You're going to learn a lot more about business by listening to those guys than you will to any, crackpot guy on YouTube telling you 10 ways to make $1 million. You got to go figure out who you are before you can tell anyone else what they should be like. But the one thing I've noticed is that you need to treat these kids like entrepreneurs. This is the way we've done it. They're all like little kids going on Shark Tank. We have 8-year-old kids that we are creating these pathways. And little Iwan from the Netherlands, he's a little kid. I'm like, hey, you want to help us with tutorials? That'd be so great. It'd be a cool experience for you, and you can help us out. Oh, great, yeah. And he helps with the tutorials, and then we made him a sponsored athlete. We got him merch and helped him develop merch lines. And then we said, okay, well, what about this and everything? And then these athletes are doing this, and this one athlete said, Greg, I want to be your drone guy. Can you help me get a sponsor? I'll come over to Europe. I'll be your drone person, but I'm not working for the FTA. I'm working for me. I'm a
I see.
personal, it's B2B. It's treating every athlete that we have, or at least the majority of them, and just the overall culture of
Mhm.
entrepreneurship. If you can treat them like they are their own independent people that have their own lives to lead, and all that's happening is that you are empowering them to build their own brand, and then you just do a B2B partnership with them at certain places, then it's not like they work for you. You don't work for them. They're not your little slave, like the way I
Yeah.
felt like on Team Canada. No, your guys are working in conjunction with each other, and
Mhm.
sometimes it won't work. And it's like, sorry, we'll find somebody else that can do this, but they'll come back 6 years later, literally 6 years later, and say, Greg, I want to do your broadcast for Barcelona. Oh, great, Tom, let's do it. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden, so it's treating them like little entrepreneurs and allowing that and creating those pathways in the FTA so that they know that this is a regular thing. It's really that, I would say, is the secret sauce.
I love that. I love kind of the working together, and especially in business, that's huge, and kind of making that, as you mentioned earlier, going with the flow and kind of everyone. I feel like that makes everyone kind of equal partners, almost like we're all in it together type of thing, not just, I'm going to do the majority of the work and you sit back and relax type of thing. But as you guys continue to grow and expand, what's kind of the vision for the next, 5, 10, 15 years as you guys continue to grow and build?
World domination.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. We have some really big announcements coming up in the next year. And once we're allowed to announce all that, then it's a whole nother ball game. So
Okay.
basically what's happened over the last few years, we've proven that the market exists. We've
Mhm.
shaped the market, put the underlying structures, educational structures, franchise structures, esports structures, social media content, all these kind of things all in place, which you don't really see on social media so much, but they
Right.
have to be there, right? And so now we're playing with the big boys. We have now basically positioned freestyle trampoline as an action sport. So Urban
Mhm.
World Series, this event here as an example, has 33,000 people there, skateboard, scooter, BMX. We hit something like 13 million eyeballs on the event with live stream and post-event distribution and all that sort of stuff. We put $1.2 million into the city of Barcelona. So we're hitting those economic impact numbers, heads and beds, as some of the tourist people will probably know
Mhm.
from your side. And we basically now positioned it, and this was a big debut, this Barcelona event last year. Now we've been able to sign another like 8 major festivals. We just announced one called NL Contest just today, actually. It stands for New Line Contest. It's a French festival, but they have 70,000 people there, skateboard, scooter, BMX. Again, these are all places that we want to be, because we're saying, no, trampoline is not this weird sissy sport. What it
Mhm.
is a cool action sport that anyone with a skateboard, a snowboard, a free ski. I coach snowboard Germany, ski Latvia, tons of action sports athletes all over the world, right? So anyone who wants to learn how to jump on a trampoline before they go to the rails or the hills or the ramps, they basically call us, and
Mhm.
we create a program, whether it's for an entire team or whatever it is. So fundamentally, we are creating the structure and say, no, we're an action sport. And we've now done that. So what we're now doing is saying, okay, these action sports events are going to be our feeder system to our world champs.
I
And
gotcha.
then as we build that out, then the cities pay more money. Then media becomes increased, sponsorships increase. So we're going from the endemic sponsors, the ones within the community, the little guys that are only paying a little X amount of money,
Mhm.
to now the big boys, the big corporate guys that work for the 𝐒𝐵𝐺𝐲s and the Dentsus and the big ad agencies, and they have a $300 million budget each year with these guys. So now we're playing with those guys, with corporate sponsors, but
Mhm.
we're using this platform of all these major festivals, and we're getting in front of something like 300, 400,000 people each year now because of these relationships, and plugged right in the middle, right beside the skateboard course, basically, right? And that allows us to now go after the corporate sponsors, right? And then we launching our TV channels. So the TV, the Flippin' TV, they have
Mhm.
all the long form content. Again, another structural component. You got to own your own media, basically. Don't just
Yeah.
sell it to YouTube for peanuts. You got to own it, monetize that. So that's happening with Brian over there. The events are pretty good. I'm launching esports world championships coming up. So I'm really excited with that. I got to grab that before somebody else does. You can imagine, right?
Oh
I'm a
yeah.
big gamer back in the day. Call of Duty, Halo, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Matt
Oh yeah.
Hoffman,
Yeah.
Pro BMX, all of it. I'm like, let's go. We're going to console, so do that. But then all these structures got to get put in place.
Yeah.
But then we're going to create an athlete agency. So we're going to start funneling these athletes into the 𝐒𝐵𝐺𝐲s of the world, and all that. So again, it's more structural stuff for the next, I would say, 5 years realistically. But
Mhm.
then from there, it's just going to be how bazzazzing can we get? Can we do a drone show? I saw something that had like what 7,500 drones in China or something like
Jeez.
this. It was some world record that they did recently, and it just looked beautiful. Why can't I have that in a stage as my intro, right?
Yeah.
And that becomes more just sprucing it up. But I see a lot of people, they spruce it up too fast, and then they
Mhm.
don't they don't have the structure. So they spruce it up, spend a lot of
Pause.
money, burn through that money, figuratively with their pyro, pun intended, I guess. But they don't have the underlying structure. So what
Yeah.
happens? That just goes away. People forget, and then they don't have something next week and the next day, because people need to be stimulated all the time. So if we don't have those structures, that's really key. But once that structure is pretty robust, and it already is pretty robust, but it needs a bit more fine tuning for sure for the next 5 years. But then by 2030, we're just going to be hitting it hard by going to every major festival out there and putting on a beautiful show and just growing organically through just great production. And then expanding into new areas. Like sports right now are having a huge revolution because
Oh yeah.
they don't they usually get what sport sponsorships, city hosting rights, media rights, food and beverage, and ticket sales.
Mhm.
Roughly,
Yeah.
these are your main ones, right? There's obviously others, but now sports are saying, you know what, that's not enough, right? Because now there's so much demand. Everyone's making their own sport now,
Yeah.
so now they got to get into NFT marketplaces, and I'll be surprised if in the next 5 years you don't start seeing F1 and NHL and Ninja League and all these kind of guys having their own cryptocurrencies, and then having their own, technology base and their own metaverses, and monetizing things through diversification rather than just trying to get a bigger sponsor deal. Their sponsors are kind of tapped out. They're at that ceiling. They're
Yeah.
trying to squeeze a little bit more money out of that coin purse. But no, no, no. I think the money is diversification. You're going to start seeing them actually owning and selling their own equipment for their activity zones, their fan engagement zones. They're going to start selling their own bean bags, their own speakers. You see what I'm
I
saying?
gotcha.
And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's where that's going to go.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I think, you said that perfectly. I think especially the bigger, with the leagues or teams, they're kind of like you said, getting tapped out in certain things, and people have to start getting a little creative. I feel like people have just kind of been like, oh, this is kind of how we do things normally. So we don't need to change. We don't need to do anything else. But now people are starting to realize, especially if you're a fan, you're paying for like a bundle, right? ESPN Plus and X, Y, and Z. Like, I need more. I'm paying for this, but I'm just getting the game. I need insights. I need data. I need whatever it is, right? I need to follow Greg. I need to know what he's doing, things like that. And I think that's huge. And you hit on the head perfectly. And you mentioned kind of, building the structure of it. And as you build the structure of it, in the next 5, 10 years, as you continue to grow, I have a quick fire question for you, but what's a dream venue maybe for like a world championship type of event?
I want to get to the Middle East. I've
Okay.
always seen that we are live golf versus the PGA,
Oh, I like it.
because what people don't see is that we are snowboarding in the 80s.
Yeah.
right? You got the traditional gymnastics guys that have been around since 1881, believe it or not. That's when the FIG, the Federation of International Gymnastics, was founded way back in the day when people lived with horse and buggy still.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how old this thing is, right? But they haven't changed really ever, right? That's how we got up so fast from zero to now, at the top of the action sports world in many ways, which I can't explain why 100%, but hopefully I'll be able to maybe jump on another podcast after we announce it and I can kind of go through all
Yeah.
that. But the reality is that they're not changing. We have to, and this speaks to your earlier point, that if you're not constantly evolving every year and always thinking what's ahead and dabbling in the new innovations instead of just sitting and waiting and saying, well, once everyone else adopts it, then I'll know to trust it. Wrong answer.
Yeah,
No, the right answer is I'm going to play with everything. I'm going to have an R&D division over here so I don't destroy the rest of my company, but I'm going to be constantly dabbling and throwing R&D money into this all day, every day to make sure that when I catch something really cool, like imagine if you were the guy that invented ChatGPT. Wow. And you never know when something like that's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of innovation, you really need to kind of keep it. And we're the snowboarders. We're the guys that broke away from traditional skiing and said, no, we're going to do this ourselves. So we're like Live Golf in the Middle East, where they broke away. PGA was doing bad and everything. So they said, we're going to make it cooler, right? We're literally doing the same thing with these kids in their backyards, fundamentally. So for me, if there's a place I want to go, I do want to go in the Middle East. We just did an event in Israel, our first one. So we are slowly moving into that area. And it looks like we might get to China through one of our partners as well, in Japan. So we are expanding quite quickly. We're already in 20 different countries. We had 20 countries representing world champs last year, for example, and we're expanding out. But yes, it's going to be probably the Middle East, I would say. And then I want to get to Japan. I've not been to Japan. They're very nice people, very respectful. I want to go there and do an amazing show as well. But we do have a big platform that we actually got our dream. I just can't say what it is quite yet.
Yeah, no, of course. We'll wait for another time to post that. And well, as you said earlier, world domination is the goal. Sounds like you guys are well on your way. And before we wrap up here, Greg, I just want to kind of give you the floor and get maybe wrap us up with some advice or something to look out for as the FTA grows. I know you can't release all the announcements, but where people can find you, Instagram, the website, anything like that.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone just searches or Googles Freestyle Trampoline or Freestyle Trampoline Association, our stuff will pop up. So it's not too hard to find. And we're on social media, FTA World Championships. And if you just put in hashtag Freestyle Trampoline or hashtag GTramp, you will start finding our community all over. It's not hard to find. We're everywhere. And we have a lot of different stuff going on. In terms of advice, there's so many things that I would say if I could look at me 10 years ago,
Yeah.
I would say never stop learning is one. Every day I'm waking up listening to new podcasts from MIT lecturers, about macroeconomics, microeconomics, how ChatGPT works fundamentally. What's machine learning? We just got a deal, for example, just to iron that point home. We just got a deal with a machine learning AI company that's now buying our content to feed through their algorithm to then train their AI. And I didn't even know that there was such thing as AI license deals.
Yeah.
Never even knew about that until I started dipping into that industry. So go learn stuff and go find industries. When you think, well, I'm a marketing person, I don't need to understand accounting, or vice versa, or I'm a tourism and hospitality guy, so I don't need to know anything about psychology because it's just heads and beds. Wrong answer. You need to go find a little bit of all these things and have a general knowledge of how these industries all kind of work, because you will see things from different perspectives. And that's the only way to innovate, because the only way people innovate in business or life and anything is by finding information that isn't readily accessible or available or obvious, and matching it with your own experiences or this person over here and mixing it in some creative way, and that's how you then find that aha sort of thing when you stumble into it. That's the way to do it. So if you don't have a wide knowledge base in pretty much every industry that you can find, manufacturing, everything, even has nothing to do with your original goal, you better be on it. And you're now in the age of knowledge. So if you are not going after and getting knowledge every single day and are a little bit smarter every day for stuff that either has nothing to do with your business, you're already losing at your own business. You just don't know it yet, and there's going to be some kid like me that is just hungry for that. And I'm going to eat your food. And it's just going to be that simple. So I would say that's the big one. Once you kind of get into that train of thought, everything else sort of falls into place, because then you build a network around you of people who also want to be in that journey, and then they help do the heavy lifting and open doors, and then the rest sort of takes shape once you kind of build that community around you. But they need to see that you're hungry for that knowledge and that you're always coming with something new. That's what inspires people to want to believe in you and your vision and your business.
Yeah, well said. And you're kind of getting me hyped up here, ready to rock and roll. But that was great, well said, perfectly put. And we appreciate you coming on, Greg, and giving us inside look on the FTA and have you built this franchise in such a fun kind of niche company now that is also going to world domination, as we say. But thanks to the listeners and viewers for tuning in. And you can find this episode on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and where you get your podcasts. And like I said, Greg, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks a lot, Connor. It was great to be on.
You got it.